Hi, my name is Tillie Elvrum, and I am the founder of Elvrum Consulting and an initiative really near and dear to my heart, parent support for online learning. My journey started as a parent advocate, and after 2 decades doing parent advocacy work in the school choice and online education space, I ended up the leader of a national parent advocacy organization that took me to Capitol Hill and to state houses across the country. And even when my term with that organization ended, I knew there were still things that needed to happen. And then COVID happened. And this crazy online mom got really busy when everybody started calling, asking how to do online learning. And so since then, I've been really busy. Still, always my heart is in the trenches with families, helping them have a really good learning experience in digital spaces. But then also helping these, education entrepreneurs that are trying to create more personalized learning experiences for families. And then on the policy side, making sure that policy reflects what parents really need, what educators need, and always keeping students at the center.
So let's wind back a little bit. As a parent, how did you first become attracted to unconventional education for your own kid?
Yeah, so our journey started. We were a military family, and we did what most military families do. When my husband retired, there was a headhunter, found him a job. We ended up in Northeast Pennsylvania, where we had no family or friends. And we did what most people do. You ask the real estate agent, where's the good schools, right? But what nobody told us was, and we found this out the very first year, he was in kindergarten, and they had a very long history of contentious teacher contract negotiations. And his very first year in kindergarten, the teachers went on strike. And as a public school educated mom, I was like, well, of course I support the teachers. And unfortunately, what happened though, this strike went off and on for 3 years. They could not come to an agreement. And at one point, they were out of the classroom for 6 weeks. And they didn't go back till they were court ordered by a judge. We found out pretty quickly in his education he had a learning disability, and he needed education every day. He needed it to, be quality. And there was just all these things adding up. And I said, we can't do this anymore. And so I started looking, and it was just by a miracle. We had went to the library one day to get books, and there was an ad for this new cyber charter, and I didn't know what it was, but there was something that told me go and check it out. And I went. The principal was there at this meeting. The books were there, like everything, and did my research. And I left that meeting and I was like, I think we can do this. And so we were one of the first families in Pennsylvania to do full-time online K-12 education. And within 3 months, I knew we had made the right
Mm.
decision. He was getting so much that he wasn't able to get in the in-person setting. But 3 months in, the governor decides, well, I don't like this cyber learning thing. And it was a line item in the budget. And so after I had fought so hard to get my son this education that was finally meeting his needs, getting him what he needed, um, it was under threat. And
Mm.
so wrote my first letter on behalf of online learning. And eventually we ended up moving to Ohio. And by the grace of God, Connections Academy was available in Ohio. And lo and behold, it was under threat in Ohio. And that's where I met Mickey Revenaugh. And this long journey began of doing advocacy for these families.
So fast forward to today. It's been a long, 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 long road. It does appear from all the national statistics there are more families that are investigating online learning and homeschooling and microschooling and all the different forms of unconventional education. Why do you think that's happening now?
I think COVID had a lot to do with it. I think, um, much to our dismay, our friends in the traditional learning spaces, they were not prepared to deliver remote learning, online learning. And they also didn't necessarily accept the help when they should have. And so families had a really rough experience during that time if they were not able to get back to in-person spaces. And so another thing that happened was, while the kids were sitting at the kitchen table having their Zoom lessons, parents were like figuring out, oh, I didn't know my kid was learning about this topic, or figuring out that maybe their kid wasn't responding, didn't had some knowledge gaps, content areas, and that was concerning for parents. And then there's also this group of parents that will always kind of be hyper engaged in their kids'
Mm,
education. um, I was one of them. I wasn't there for the bake sale. I wanted to be a part of my son's day-to-day learning,
right.
and online learning, micro schools, homeschooling. It gives parents the opportunity to be a really engaged partner in their kids' education and to have an education that's aligned with their values, aligned with their children's interests, the things that make them passionate about learning. And I think, we've had these programs across the country, like in Florida, Arizona, coming on in Texas, that are going to give parents that agency to be more involved in their kids' education. And I think that's exciting to a lot of families.
So I know you spend a ton of time still in state houses around the country. Um, what do you think is the single most important thing for policymakers to understand about what families are asking for today?
I think the issue that we're coming up against is, we can't all live in an Arizona or a Florida, right? Where they have these abundance of options and ability to take your funding and kind of direct those dollars. And so there's a disconnect. I hear a lot from legislators, well, I wasn't able to do that with my education or with my kids' education, so we just shouldn't do it. And that is just so far removed from what parents want and need for their kids. And that's in any system, whether in a traditional public school system or utilizing something outside of the traditional space. Every parent wants to have a say and be a partner in their kids' education. And when we create funding mechanisms that block them out or force them into, one single option, parents are just naturally going to resist that because they're able to have agency in so many other areas of their parenting journey. And so, my message to policymakers is the old ways were good, but times have changed. And many of these parents, we're now like in two generations of parents. They were products of school choice.
Right.
So they naturally expect it for their own children. And so when policymakers try to keep forcing them back into these traditional models or to make these new models look like a traditional school day, it's the wrong way to go. And, parents vote. My message to parents is they are the heart and soul of every single movement, evolution, and education. And it's so necessary for them to be involved. It looks different for every family. Some parents it might be letter writing, or another it may just be, being a resource for your fellow parents. Like, hey, I found this great reading program. You should know about it. Don't cede your authority as parents. You're so important, You know your families, you know your communities, and you know, just be there for each other, pour into each other. I wouldn't have been able to do what I did as a parent without my fellow advocates blazing a trail for me or giving me advice or, letting me know, yeah, you're on the right track. It means a lot for parents to work together, I think.